We are getting more updates coming by on this one. There is, of course, a major relief that has come in from VodaFone Idea. The Supreme Court has allowed Centre to reconsider AGR issue to grant relief. And that is the reason that big surge on the stock is what we are seeing right now. 6.5% on that one. Of course, we'll ask our colleague Ashmit to join in with more details as well. But of course, it is important to note, Centre has not submitted any plan for resolution, but Supreme Court has granted the blessing to the Centre to figure out the resolution for VodaFone Idea, and that is something that the street seems to like. 7% higher on that stock because now it's a major relief which has come in. AGR due something that was impacting the balance sheet, that was impacting the performance on the P&L, higher interest dues that they had. So if there is a reconsideration of that amount, that will definitely be a relief for their financials.
No bad news is good news, right? Yeah. And that's what it is. And the resolution plan may not have been submitted yet, but they have at least received the go-ahead from the Supreme Court that they see no impediment in the Centre reconsidering this issue, and as a result of which the stock has also moved higher on this news. Vaibhav Kakkar is joining in for a quick comment on this. Mr. Kakkar, good morning. Thank you for joining in. Now, do you see this as a major relief for VodaFone Idea, considering the fact that the Supreme Court has removed any potential roadblocks in case of any relief that the company was likely to receive?
Absolutely. First of all, good morning to all of you. I think this is a very positive move. From the proceedings that I witnessed and I observed, it was very apparent that the Supreme Court was looking at different options and was willing to be accommodative. And I think they took on board Union of India's affidavit. And they have specifically remarked that given the fact that there are change in circumstances with the government owning 49% of VodaFone after the conversion of their debt, and the fact that there are 20 crore subscribers out there, that in public interest, the government should reconsider in line with the affidavit of the Union of India. So overall, a very positive move. Also, what the Supreme Court has remarked is that ultimately aspects such as these are left to the domain of the executive, the Union of India, from a policy standpoint to take decisions. So I think it has given a lot of flexibility for the government to now reassess the AGR dues for the past period, taking into account the general direction that public interest will allow the government to look at things more, I would say, more sympathetically in light of today's decision.
Take that point, Mr. Kakkar. Just hold on. Let's go across to Ashmit, our colleague, who has been hearing the entire conversation. Ashmit, tell us more.
Well, this is a really long time coming for VodaFone Idea. They had been batting for a waiver of those dues. Now, there have been 3 adjournments that had been sought by the Centre. The Centre had asked for time. Today again, they appeared before the Apex Court. And while they have not given any specific resolution as far as the AGR issue is concerned, they have asked for more wiggle room from the Apex Court, which the Supreme Court has been happy to oblige them with. The Supreme Court saying that this is a unique situation. There is a case to be made for the government now holding 49% stake. By way of the government holding stake, there is now a case to be made for public interest in this matter. Speaking of public interest, there are over 20 crore customers. So to that end, the Apex Court giving the clarification that this is an issue for the policy domain, for the government to take a policy call. At the same time, the Supreme Court also saying that this is an issue where the Apex Court, the Supreme Court is granting relief given the peculiar facts and circumstances of this case. Again, making a reference to the government stake of 49%, making a reference to the 20 crore customers that stand to get impacted, and while allowing that relief to the government to structure some form of relief for VodaFone Idea going forward. What that is, of course, is now an issue that the DOT, that the Department of Telecom will have to grapple with. But while allowing that flexibility and relief, the Supreme Court saying that this is applicable to VodaFone Idea given the peculiar facts and circumstances, which then also begs the question that any relief that comes from the government, will it be applicable only and only to VodaFone Idea, or will it be across the board to other players like Bharti Airtel as well. So another question that needs answering. For now, the Supreme Court granting its blessing for the apex court, for the government to structure some form of relief package for Vodafone Idea.
Ashmit, thank you for that update, and of course you'll continue to get more updates from Ashmit on this big news coming in on Vodafone Idea. We're also being joined by Sanjay Asher of Crawford Bailey and Company, and also by Balaji Subramaniam of IIFL Securities. Gentlemen, thank you for joining in. Mr. Asher, first to you, sir. The one line that the Supreme Court order mentions is that this is applicable only to the peculiar facts and circumstances of this case, given the equity stake that the government has and the 20 crore customers. Does this mean that the other telecom operators cannot use this as a precedent and seek similar relief for the additional AGR dues?
Yeah, one can interpret it that way, but I would interpret what CJI also clarified, that this is in the policy domain of the union. And there is no reason as to why the union should be prevented from considering the matter. So, to my mind, not necessarily it would apply only to Vodafone, but it could apply to the other telecom operators as well. Because if it is a policy decision, it should apply to everyone.
So it should apply to everyone. Let's just take a look at Bharti Airtel's stock price. It has seen some fall when this particular statement was being flashed that it applies only to that peculiar case or peculiar note. So it has come off from the highs of the day. But as Mr. Asher just mentioned, it should just not apply to one company. It should be for all the telecom operators. So that clarity is something that we are awaiting. But Balaji is joining us from IIFL. Balaji, what do you make of this? And do you think it will materially it will be a material positive for Vodafone Idea, and now the investors can look at the stock from a positive understanding?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. So my reading of the situation is that now the Supreme Court has blessed any movement from the government in terms of providing any potential relief measure. Now, what measure they come out with, we have to see, because it can be anything, right from giving a moratorium, which the Supreme Court input is not really required, to something like extending the timeline of the AGR payment, which currently stands at March 31st, 2031. And over a longer time, I wouldn't be surprised even if the government tries to, remove the calculation errors which the telcos have called out and the government itself has acknowledged in the past. So I think these are, some of the potential relief measures that can come. In what form and, what combination of these will come is something which we'll have to see. But I think if any of these cash flow relief measures pan out, then it will become a lot easier for the company to complete its 25,000 crore bank debt funding that it has been talking about. So I think, that means that any concerns on the ability of the entity to survive after 2026 March or so, I think those concerns now recede, and there is a clear visibility in terms of the company's next 4 or 5 years.
All right, take that point. So some more clarity, of course, is required in certain aspects of this order. HP Ranina, the senior advocate at Supreme Court, is also joining us now. Mr. Ranina, good morning. Thank you for joining in. What's your take of this order that has come by, and what do you think should be the next step going forward?
Well, I think it's a very welcome order. It gives two things, namely that Supreme Court will not interfere. It's a matter of government policy. So government has now been given free rein that you do what you like to help the telecom sector. So you can either, give them some additional stake if you want, or you can give them more time, or you can reduce the amount. And obviously, once the government takes a policy, then they'll have to apply it uniformly to other telecom companies as well. They can't pick and choose. And therefore, I think this is a very good order from the industry point of view. All telecom companies will stand to gain. And Supreme Court will not interfere in this matter, but has really given a free hand to the central government. The ball is now in the central government's court.
Indeed, interesting. Indeed, that was the case, right, Mr. Ranina? But
Right.
Mr. Kakkar, as Mr. Ranina mentioned that the ball is now in the central government's court, was that already the prerogative for the government, right? Because they had made this very clear multiple times in the past that India needs to be a three-player market within the telecom space. And the fact that they are also an equity holder in the company, being the largest shareholder now. So the onus now lies on them to provide a resolution plan for Vodafone Idea, because the company had made it clear that unless and until there is any relief forthcoming, their ability to continue as a going concern was always under threat.
That's absolutely right. I think incidentally, just so that you know, we as a firm had represented Government of India in conversion of its dues to 49%. Remember, the limitation is that the government could not have crossed the 49% threshold for the fact that otherwise Vodafone would have become a government company, and that would have had its own set of complications from a corporate law standpoint. So I think overall this is a positive move. The way to look at this is that what the Supreme Court's order does today, that it gives a legal cover for Government of India to now look at Vodafone case somewhat differently in light of the fact that 49% of the equity is owned by the government itself. And in that backdrop, taking into account the unique facts and circumstances, come up with a relief and a rehabilitation package in a way that it is not used as a precedent value for other telecom operators. So I think given the fact that, BSNL and MTNL are obviously on its last breath, it's imperative that the government pushes through a plan which then ensures that at least three telco operators are there. Ultimately, competition in the market is an important policy objective that the government would like to achieve. So overall, a good day from Vodafone's standpoint. It does give the legal cover for government to look at Vodafone's case differently.
Totally take that point. In fact, let's get in our colleague Ashmit as well. Ashmit, first, that clarity, is it applicable only to Vodafone Idea or whether it goes across to all the other telecom operators as well? Because the experts who joined us now have been saying that government should not pick and choose. As Mr. Ranina mentioned, it should be applicable to all the operators. Is there any clarity on that? And what are the other parts that the investors should be aware of as well?
Well, a couple of aspects to bear in mind. Number one, Bharti Airtel was not before the Supreme Court. It was only Vodafone Idea that had moved this application seeking grant of relief. Having said that, a couple of things to bear in mind. Number one, this application filed by Vodafone Idea, a particular case was made by the government that, look, there are particular specific facts and circumstances with respect to Vodafone Idea. Those conditions were that, number one, the government is now a 49% equity holder. Number two, that there are as many as 20 crore customers, that if Vodafone Idea, the company, goes away, well, that will impact competition as well as the customers. And it is bearing these three aspects in mind that the Apex Court has granted its relief in terms of allowing the government to fashion a relief. Now, there are two aspects here to bear in mind. Number one, the Supreme Court says that, look, this is a policy decision. This is an aspect which the Supreme Court will not intervene in. It will not prevent the government from going ahead and working some kind of policy resolution to this matter. But again, reiterating that this is a policy matter that is to be placed in the hands of the government to decide which is the best course of action forward. But having said that, one caveat that the Supreme Court has slipped in, which is causing some debate, some confusion here, is that the Supreme Court saying that this will be limited, this order is being given with respect to the peculiar facts and circumstances pertaining to Vodafone Idea. So both these aspects have to be looked at. Again, no explicit direction being given by the Supreme Court that any relief package will be limited only to Vodafone Idea, not to Bharti Airtel. But we also have to bear in mind that Bharti Airtel was not present here. The Supreme Court saying that this is a peculiar situation that Vodafone Idea is confronted with, that the government is confronted with now that they enjoy a 49% stake. But in the same breath also saying that, look, this is at the end of the day a policy decision, and that the Supreme Court shall not come in the way of the government, of the DOT, going about working towards a resolution of this AGR issue. So at this point, the Supreme Court playing it with an even keel. We'll of course have to see how the government chooses to respond to this blessing that has been granted by the Apex Court to go ahead and to work towards resolving the long-standing legacy issue of the AGR dispute.
Indeed, Ashmit, thank you for that update. And of course, we'll continue to get more from Ashmit over the course of the day. Just before we wrap up this conversation, one final word from you, Mr. Ranina. As you just heard Ashmit mentioning that one point of contention with regards to the peculiar facts, do you believe that this will at least now set a precedent for other telecom companies or the other telecom incumbents to ask for similar relief with regards to these additional AGR dues?
Yes, I think so, because on the one hand, Ashmit says the Supreme Court has clarified this is a policy of the government. And as you know, under our Constitution, the Supreme Court will not intervene wherever policy issues are involved. Therefore, I would feel that while they were confined this to Vodafone's case because the other party was not in the picture, obviously they will only give a direction to Vodafone, not to any other party. But the policy decision has been upheld. The policy issue has been upheld by the Supreme Court, which means that the central government can now give similar relief to others as well. In fact, they should, because they cannot pick and choose. If there's a policy, it must apply uniformly to the entire telecom industry. Therefore, my own view is that reading this judgment of the Supreme Court, the government has been given a free hand. Take a policy and apply it uniformly to all the the entire telecom industry.
All right. Thank you for your insights, Mr. Ranina, and thank you to the other experts for joining us today, Mr. Kakkar, Mr. Ashar, Balaji. Thank you so much for taking out time and telling us what the outcome of this case is and analyzing that as well for us. With that, we'll do one thing. We'll slip into a short break. When we come back, we'll get more on the markets and stock-specific action. Stay tuned for that.